What's up, y'all? I'm not gonna play the video because I'm not sure how this content creator uses the copyright. But her video is called "A House is Not a Good Investment," and I'm gonna go through this comment section primarily to um get my point across. But generally, I'll explain why I agree with the video title and but not what she says. Again, you're gonna have to go over there yourself and watch it because again, I don't want to have to like re-upload this and do a bunch of different shit. So you're gonna have to go and watch it and see what she says. But um, an overview of what she says in my own words is basically, a house is not a good investment because essentially, if you mortgage, you got the what is that? The interest rates, and then if you gotta repair stuff on your own, the typical arguments that people make. Um, and then we got people like this who pretty much say the same thing that responded to me. Listen, the way here's how I look at it. I started off looking at it the same way that her and a lot of people on their comment section are doing, which is interest rate and you gotta do this and you pay double what the house is. Like the first time I was watching this guy, it's called the Black Authority, and he said if you put the payments in, you're paying 2 to 3 times what the house is actually priced for. And like everybody else, I reacted with, "Whoa, yeah, yeah, don't do that. That's stupid." But but here's where now that I was house searching and looking to purchase a home, I realized how stupid that argument is. Okay. Um, as you see here, I responded with, "Isn't rent just 100% interest?" And I say this because, well, yeah. Hypothetically, let's say person A and person B. Person A is the person that has a mortgage. Person B is the person that has rent. And let's say they both pay. We're trying to keep it simple here, so I don't want to look up the average, this average that. They're pretty much similar, So it's give or take whatever. So let's say they both pay $1,000 a month, right? Let's say after 30 years, neither one of them ever move, which is statistically not what happens. But again, hypothetically, let's say neither one of them moves. The person who mortgaged would have paid. I mean, well, they both pay the same thing. So let's punch it in. 12,000 a year times 10, 120 times 360. So let's say the house was probably purchased for like 150, right? Somewhere in there, because that's typically how the interest works. Well, if they both are paying $360,000, well, at least the person who has the mortgage is still sitting on some money that they could sell, use, and to retire on, or sell to maybe if they want to downsize or whatever. They still are sitting on some money, whereas the person who rented for 30 years and paid the same amount, you don't have that money. So when people use the argument of that interest, you're never going to see that money again, and you're going to see the rent money again, it's the same shit. Now, I'm not the type of person that can pick a side and then say the other side is just completely wrong. Listen, no. I definitely understand why you would still rent. It still makes sense in some situations. If you are the type of person who you know for a fact you gonna move, you absolutely are going to move without a doubt, because you don't like seeing the same shit all the time. You don't like being locked in to where if you're a shit neighbor, if you have a shit neighbor that moves in, now you're in a fucked up situation. Trust me, I get it. I am living next to an old guy who's on his last leg. His wife already passed 3 years ago. If he dies, I'm curious who the fuck is going to get that house, because he's a one of the more decent old people. It's quiet. The only time I hear him is like when I'm either laying in bed or in the bathroom. They're both on his side of the house, and it's summertime, so I got the window open and I hear his car. I hear him walking. That's it. Well, I mean, when his wife was alive, I heard him argue a lot, but that was about it. I don't hear him. He don't talk a lot of shit to me. He don't do annoying. Well, he lets his yard on his side of the fence. It gets annoying, but I don't have any problems with him. So if a piece of shit moves in, oh boy, am I stuck. I am fucked if that happens to me. So I totally understand if somebody would rather rent and say, okay, yeah, I ain't renewing this lease. I'm gonna start looking now. Obviously, duh. And here's another thing I've said before. Yo, if I was making bank, I probably would rent. I would probably rent a condo specifically. This way, I ain't gotta worry about nothing. I can just come home, wash my clothes, blah blah blah. That's it. So I understand both sides. But this idea that interest is fucking stupid. I agree with the person in this last. You're paying for a place to live. Yeah, both parties, both situations. And like everybody always says, rent and mortgage, they're always about the same. I've been hearing this since I was a child. So why would it matter which one you do if you're okay with the pros and cons of which one you choose? This is not a black or white thing. This is not a right or wrong thing. This is a very individual, very situation specific decision to make. But let's go through some of these comment sections and hope they don't say the same shit over and over again, okay? All right. When I was looking at my first house, every builder rep said, when you sell, I get so annoyed, like, damn, can I live in this one first? You know, I was watching a video the other day, and they brought up the fact that not a lot of, most places aren't like America, where they look at a starter home, and then now they're going to, like, at some point leave. And I do think that there's a lot that goes in. Like when people bitch about the house prices, it's like it's not just a seller's problem. It's a lot of shit that goes into this. For one, we're gonna start with this one. Like you said, a starter home when you sell, people house like why would you move into a home that I'm assuming you want to start a family and children and whatnot for the plans of moving? If you're just going to plan on moving, it just doesn't make sense to me. At that point, you really definitely lose the argument of why would I rent? Well, why would you buy if you don't want to be here forever? That doesn't make sense. I understand that if you rent, you're at the mercy of the landlord, but if you buy with the intentions of leaving, you're going to be at the mercy of the marker, the market, the buyer, etc. When you plan on moving, everything could just collapse at that point. And now you spent 100 grand on something that ain't worth shit right now for another year and a half. Why would you do that? So I don't understand that concept. Um, and another thing that I think I've said this before somewhere else, maybe not on YouTube, but people seem to not understand that when you want so much bullshit in your house, you have to pay for that. Now I know this isn't related to this, but I just got to vent on this whole ordeal. You cannot complain about housing being expensive when you want a office space, a movie theater, a gym. Everybody gets an individual room that's very spacious and they can customize to their liking. Like, if you want all that shit, it's gonna cost you, bro. It's gonna cost you a pretty penny. My next home is gonna be smaller because I have a whole portion of the house I don't fucking use. Hell, it was a raccoon living in there, and I ain't know because I don't fucking use the damn thing. So a lot of people really need to put into perspective when they're complaining about housing, what they're asking for. If you ask for Disney World, you paying. Let's move on. A house should not be looked at as an investment. A house should be looked at as a home. When you plant your roots and build a life there, and hopefully one day will pay it off and won't have a monthly payment anymore, rent or mortgage payments are far the biggest chunk of money people lose on a monthly basis. Here's the problem I have with the whole rent and mortgage. No, sorry, the mortgage specifically. Um, Even if you get, let's say you get a 30-year fixed, all you, when you take your time, listen, you got to take your time, right? And again, assume that you're not going to buy something that's going to make you what they call house poor, which means you have a little bit of ability to put money aside, so on and so forth. If you respond with, if you go out after 10 years, if you do it right after 10 years, you can refinance, especially if you can put a chunk of money down with it. Also, every year when they, and this is that they misrepresent this a lot, when they say make an extra payment once a year. No. You need to be revisiting every 6 months. Not doing this specific thing, but you need to be revisiting your budget every 6 months and looking at, okay, can we afford to pay towards just the principal this month a good chunk of change? Let's say like $3,500. The reason being because obviously, if you understand interest rates, if you are knocking like $2,500 off every 6 months, $5,000 off every 6 months, that interest rate after that will be small. The interest out of the whole payment for that month will be smaller and smaller and smaller, and that will make it to where now you can get to like a 20-year point, especially if you refinance after 10, 15 years. That payment's going to do nothing but go down, and now you should be on easy street. Like I said, I want to go to part-time when I'm 50. Even after I make this move to get a home, I should be able to still semi-retire at 50, because hopefully my 401k is still there. Um, my payments at that by that point should be south of $500, and if I'm taking care of everything while I'm still youthful esque in comparison to what old age is, I should be just fine, not a problem in the world. But then again, you have to make the proper adjustments. You can't go, okay, this is what I have, this is my career, which isn't likely to change at this point. I'm 34, and then you just blow a bunch of money on some bullshit, and I hope you, quote unquote, you hope that it works out. That's stupid. Don't do that. I repeat, that is stupid. Don't do that. Too many people confuse asset with investment. It's only an investment if you're buying out lots of homes and intend to rent them all. A primary resident is not an investment. Not for the most part, no. Obviously, if you can go in, but if again, this is a very niche type of person or situation. But if you're the type of person who finds abandoned houses, go in there, and because I met a guy like this, you go in there, you fix it up room by room, right? And you do this because you want to be able to go in there and live until you can fix it all the way up and then sell it at a profit. Some people do that. Now, again, that's a very niche type of situation. That's don't even think about it, because when you do stuff like that, you're competing with crackheads. I don't want to be in no situation where I'm competing with crackheads. They might kill you in your sleep. All right. I bought a house in 2022 more because my rent had gone up like 12% 3 years in a row. I also found a mortgage with no PMI and no minimum down payment. So my out of pocket was only $5,000, including down payment and closing costs. 3 years later, I have a six-figure salary with monthly costs under $1,400. Less than an investment. It's more of a hedge against rising rent. Is that private mortgage insurance? Let me look that shit up. Give me a minute. I want to look this up and see what the hell what is that? PMI. Yeah, it's called private mortgage insurance. This is an insurance policy that protects the lender, not the borrower, in case of default on a mortgage loan, typically required when a down payment is less than 20% of a home's value. How the hell did he do that if it's well? It said typically. All right, whatever. I'm not going to try to wrap my head around that. But it sounds like a decent situation. Moving on. A house is not okay. We're not doing that one. We were renting a property. You know what? Let me go back up to there. Going up like 12% 3 years in a row. So hypothetically, let's say rent it was at in 2000 before COVID like $700, which in some cases it was 600. Well, let's just go with seven. All right, and let's go with 10% and not 12 to keep it simple. So 10%. So it went up to 770. Okay, and then the next year another 10%. So it went up to 834, some shit like that. Let's just say 840. I'm not. I listen. I cannot picture numbers in my head and do a chalkboard math. So we're just gonna go with 840, and then another 10%. So now rent was over $900 at that point. So yeah, when you have that type of situation, and like I said, if you don't see yourself moving around a lot, that makes sense. So and also, and this is a a very good example. This somebody, even if he hadn't gone up to six figures, because it sounded like he was doing decent before the six figures, he would have. He can now, 10 years from now, again, put a nice chunk of money with. I'm assuming he can put like 15 grand with it, with the way it sounded, at least 15 grand. And now that 1,400 will shrink down to below 1,000. And if his salary is still the same or even goes up, he's looking at an easy peasy cruise to retirement because it's not costing him anything. Well, not anything, not a lot. And if he decides to do something like, I want to relocate and go and live in Bali for retirement, I'm getting real sick of hearing this whole overseas retirement thing. Shit, I'm tired of it. But if you want to do something like that, your house should have more than enough equity in it where you can help. Even if you want to do a quick sale to a private lender or a private investor, you should make away with some dough. But again, you have to properly look at life. Too many people are looking at the government like, bring the prices down. How? How the fuck can an entity that didn't build the house bring the prices down? That doesn't make sense. The person who built the house had to buy the lumber, the cement, the labor. Bring that price down. How exactly? Buying a house in 2020 was the best financial decision I ever made. 2.8%, 2.9% interest mortgage has been beating inflation. It makes me money because the payments stay cheap while rent has been spiking. Buying my same house today with today's rates and prices would have been financially devastating. I wish I'd have paid attention to the housing prices then because for comparison's sake, like I have seen like I've seen some houses like for like $160,000, and it's like it doesn't even have a garage. I'm about to pay 160 for a rent style house with no garage, and it was built in 1927. What the actual fuck? No, I'm not doing that. Buying a rental property and keeping it long term is almost always a great investment if you follow these rules. Don't expect to make gobs of money right away. It's a decades long play. And that's another thing. People don't understand that. Well, they complain that they're paying their landlord's mortgage, but it's like, well, yeah, they people use money that they get from you to pay other shit like bills. Like I don't understand how that's a shock. But let's try to skip ahead a little bit. There are pros and cons to both. As a homeowner, I've had to budget for repairs and replacements. As a renter, I've dealt with landlords who wouldn't fix anything, and my only option would be to move to a smaller place and pay double the rent because rent never stays the same in cities over time. In my city, it costs around 3K a month for a two-bedroom apartment. 10 years ago, it would have cost about 800. A lot of people who rent never plan for that possibility of having to move and how rent increases over time. I see owning a home as an investment if you plan on paying off your mortgage in a short amount of time and using your equity to buy a rental property or make other long term investments. Owning a home can provide you a nest egg if you are okay renting in your senior years. Ownership also helps provide generational wealth for your kids, but so does renting and saving and investing. I would say home ownership shouldn't be the American dream, being debt free and financially stable should be the goal. Okay, I'm going to skip right to the last part of this quote unquote explanation because, no, I'm going to go through the whole thing. I think this person started off good with one sentence and then shit the bed the rest of it. So, there are pros and cons to both. Yes, I've explained that in the beginning. We won't go over here. As a homeowner, I've had to budget for repairs and placements. Honestly, I believe that depends on how big your house is. Okay, because listen, even in my brokest year, like when I first moved on my own, it took me 3 years just to have 5 grand in the bank, which was like, I looked at that myself and like, wow, this is sad. Like I had to incrementally climb over 36 months to 5 grand. Damn. But at the same time, the repairs that were needed on my house were not immediate, or even if they were, like the furnace, cost a couple $100. To get a part replaced. I'm not sure what that would cost now. Now that hasn't gone up that much, but it's still manageable. Now, if you're talking about a foundation leak or something like that, well, yeah, at that point you got a budget for repairs for the most part. If you're a homeowner, you probably should have a few thousand in the bank at least, a few. Um, as a renter, I've dealt with landlords who wouldn't fix anything, and my only option would be to move to a smaller place and pay double the rent because rent never stays the same in cities over time. That's only like 3 sentences. I'll attack it in two. I've dealt with landlords who wouldn't fix anything. I've said that at the beginning. You're going to run into, well, a lot of times it is possible that the landlord can see. So look at it like this. Obviously, y'all both see this property differently. The renter sees it as a place to stay. The landlord sees it as a income thing. So they're going to address it differently. It's like be the employee and employer. Yeah, the employee is like, yo, these tools suck, and we need better gloves. This like we need to upgrade all of this. And the employer is like, bitch, fuck you. No, recycle those gloves. Take them home and wash them. I don't give a fuck. Recycle the gloves. The tools are just fine. You did the job, didn't you? All right, then we're going to stay put. So when you got a property and you like, yo, hey, this handrail is kind of wobbly, bro. I might die. Like, you're 30. Don't use it. Just walk up the stairs. Like you're going to see things very differently because they have to save money, and to you, it's like I paid you, so I shouldn't have to deal with these problems, big or small. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. Don't ever think that's. I don't care how nice the landlord is. If you start digging into their pockets too much, that niceness is gonna wear off, and they're gonna go, maybe you should move, because you sound like you seem like you breaking this shit. That is, you're gonna have this kind of problem regardless. Oh yeah, and then you move to a smaller place and pay double the rent because they're exaggerating a little bit. Um, if you're gonna pay double the rent, it doesn't sound. I seriously doubt that the place you're going to would be smaller if you're paying double the rent. Hell, when I was looking at apartments.com, because I was considering maybe a transitional period, pretty much they're all in like a similar range. If you want 1 or 2 bedrooms, it's going to cost you anywhere from $875 to $1,300. So if the $875 is too cheap and they ain't fixing nothing, and you can find the 1300 place, and they seem pretty good. Their tenants seem to give them a thumbs up and good reviews. You're not paying double, dude. You're not, and I doubt that place is smaller. So people need to cut the shit. This is an exaggeration. Uh, where? In my city, it costs around $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. It sounds like he's either in L.A., San Francisco, or New York. Listen, if you are going to live there and say it's worth it, shut up. Because every time people like me hear you New Yorkers, my rent is $3,000 and I only have like 4 tiles on the floor to sleep on and I have roommates. And then we go, you probably should get out of there. I'm not sure what skill you have, but I'm pretty sure they have it in other places, bro. You sure you like move? Not everyone can move, and New York is expensive because there's a lot of money here. Then shut up. Then shut the fuck up. You just said it's worth it, so why are you on the internet saying it's not? If it's worth it, live there and shut up. Oh my God, you New Yorkers get on my fucking nerves when you're complaining about rent. Because every time somebody tries to offer a solution, it's no. No, New York is the spot, man. It's worth it. Okay, then shut up. If New York is worth it, shut up. Please. 10 years ago, it would have cost about $800. A lot of people who rent never plan for the possibility of having to move and how rent increases over time. If you plan on renting forever and you don't plan on that, you're an idiot. I understand you want it to increase incrementally, but if you never ever expect any type of a spike, or maybe somebody else buys the house or building and now you got to move, if you don't plan on any of that ever happening and keeping a nearby just in case in mind, you're an idiot. If there's one apartment there, there's usually another apartment complex or rent somewhere nearby. But if you don't plan on anything bad happening, you gotta think on your feet. You're an idiot. Like it shouldn't even have to be a matter of you thinking on your feet. It should be a matter of, okay, well, I guess that is thinking on your feet, so never mind. I see owning a home as an investment if you plan on paying off your mortgage in a short amount of time using your equity to buy a rental property. Who the fuck is writing these sentences? Kyle tipping your rock, like, dude, you shorten up your talking, dog. Damn. Owning a home. I see owning a home as an investment if you plan on paying off your mortgage in a short early. Let's just stop it there early. It depends on what short amount of time you're talking about. If you're saying 10 years, listen, I know I spoke earlier about being in a good situation where you can afford this, down payment, blah, blah, blah. But even then, I'm not trying to say be able to pay it off in 10, 15 years. That's a hell of an ask. Hell, that's somebody who is severely living below their means to the point where they're probably living at a compromise at that point. Extreme compromise. I'm not talking about a decent, good compromise. I'm talking about like a detrimental type of compromise. And then using your equity to buy a rental property or other long-term investments. If you use your equity, I'm pretty sure that means you take out a lien or something like that on the property you just paid off. If that's the case, dude, why don't you just buy the other property before you pay this one? I don't understand like this concept. People, stop the idea of investing. Just stop. Because the people talk as if the average person can just invest in other things. No. No. Investing still takes skill and critical thinking in a particular area and way. telling people, oh, like get a rental property, okay? So now with their 9 to 5 job, 9 to 5 income, which again they obviously are earning above average, they're going to also be a landlord and either have the skills to fix things themselves or pay someone else. This is not a good idea for most people. Stop, just stop investing. Just go to your employer, max out the 401k, and that's it. That's your investment. Because y'all gonna get a lot of people in fucking trouble trying to invest in everything. Bitcoin was a bubble, a blip on the radar. So this idea of invest, invest, invest as if that's going to happen again, some people are losing. And people thinking like this gets you in that losing situation. I'm not against investing. I'm against how we talk about it as if the average person is skilled enough to do it. You're not. Most people aren't. Stop it. Owning a home can provide a nest egg if you are okay with renting in your senior years. What are they talking about? Are they talking about selling that? I don't understand that point. So I'm gonna move past it. And it's the last one. Owning also helps provide generational wealth to your kids. That one I agree with. That one I absolutely agree with. Um, when people talk about generational wealth, I very rarely hear people talking about the owning the home part, which is very weird because that is the number one way you pass down generational wealth. Like seriously, like look at what people usually have their generational wealth linked to. It's a home. Okay. Um, but then they ended with just if you can rent and then like have save and invest and rent. Like, why can't you save and invest while paying the mortgage? Again, they're largely the same amount. So this person kind of ran off the rails. They were trying to be a little too smart instead of keeping it simple. So, but yeah, what do y'all think about renting versus mortgage? Put in the comment section. Be right, not positive. I'm out.